Welcome back to Pressers by FedNet, where news conferences from the United States Congress become podcast episodes for your listening on your time. On March 25th, House Democratic Caucus Chair Pete Aguilar and Vice Chair Ted Lieu, each of California, held their weekly news conference in the House recording studio. The two focus on President Trump's economic and tariff policies, a group chat on Signal leaked to a journalist, a Republican effort to counter national injunctions by district court judges, FEMA reform, and more. Aguilar spoke first. The following material is protected by copyright.
Good morning. Always pleased to be joined with the Vice Chair of the Democratic Caucus, Ted Lieu. We just left a successful caucus meeting and had a productive conversation today. Many of our members will be heading to Tucson tomorrow to pay respects for our colleague Raul Grijalva. His legacy for clean air, clean water, and a strong economy for working people will be greatly missed. House Democrats spent last week talking to our constituents back home, and despite Donald Trump's promise to lower costs that they face, it has not become any easier for anyone to buy groceries. Tariffs are making everyday goods more expensive, and illegal cuts are threatening the services that people rely on. And it's clear, the Republican recession is becoming more and more likely, and it will make things even worse. The cost of living will be too high, and we'll start to see more layoffs. People will lose their jobs, potentially their homes, and their health care. And the Republican budget cutting $880 billion from Medicaid will make health care more expensive, especially for people who are out of work because of the Republican recession. It didn't have to be this way. Donald Trump inherited a growing economy and falling inflation, but in 8 weeks, he's made it worse across the board. Meanwhile, House Republicans are turning a blind eye to the economy while it's going off the cliff. House Democrats are focused on bringing down the cost of living and stopping these Republican cuts to Medicaid. Vice Chair Ted Lieu.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth should resign. He recklessly texted operational details of military strikes, including time, place, location, and sequencing of those strikes, to a journalist. Had that information gotten to the Houthis, American pilots could have been shot down, Navy sailors could have been targeted. His reckless actions endangered the lives of American troops, endanger our national security, and makes it so that our allies don't want to share sensitive classified information with us anymore. In addition, Signal is not approved for government use, especially for this kind of use. Before entering politics, I had a secret security clearance. I served actively in the U.S. military. And when you go to a secure facility, the first thing they make you do is they make you put your phones outside the facility. So you can't have our top national security professionals using an app that's commercially available and not authorized for this use to be discussing these kinds of war plans. They never should have been on that Signal chat to begin with, and they made it worse by having a journalist on that chat. These are reckless actions by Secretary of Defense. And he also made it worse. Instead of accepting responsibility, he lied to the American people. He said this was all a hoax when confronted by a reporter. Well, the White House confirmed that these Signal chats were authentic. Instead of apologizing to the American people, Hegseth lied to American people. The cover-up is even worse. Actually, I don't think the cover-up is worse. This whole thing is really, really bad. It shows how not serious these national security professionals take our national security. Hegseth needs to resign, and everyone on that text chain needs to go take some courses on how to deal with national security classified information.
Questions?
Nick? When Democrats were back in their districts last week, were constituents supportive of the votes that you took on government funding a week and a half or so ago?
When we were back in our districts, I want to thank the Democratic Policy and Communications group. We also participated, all of us, in Medicaid Day of Actions, having roundtables, discussion, press conferences surrounding the $880 billion that House Republicans want to take from Medicaid. We overwhelmingly heard from our constituents the need to protect health care back home. With respect to the CR vote, we heard lots of support for our actions. Our constituents, my constituents, understand the difficulties that the Trump administration poses, how they want to gut programs that help people. And blessing that by voting for a CR didn't seem like the right approach. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Leader Scalise announced yesterday that the House will be voting on Darrell Iss's bill to dilute the power of national injunctions in the wake of Judge Boasberg's national injunction on the alien, the deportations to El Salvador. I want to get your thoughts on that particular piece of legislation. I want to get your thoughts on House Republican attacks on Judge Boasberg on national injunctions when they supported them during the Biden administration. And I'd love to hear Vice Chair Lieu's thought as a member of the Judiciary Committee.
Yeah, I'll defer to the Judiciary Committee member here, but look, they celebrated some of these rulings in Texas, in North Texas, when it meant not allowing overtime pay for employees. They supported these when it meant delays for individuals with DACA status. They supported these lower court rulings then, but now they don't support them when a lower court doesn't rule in their favor. The Supreme Court Justice, the Supreme Court putting out special notice indicating there is a way to combat this. This is the appellate process. Let the courts go through their work. A free and fair judiciary is all we've ever wanted. I just don't understand why House Republicans don't share our goals.
You know who appointed Judge Boasberg? It was a Republican president. He was nominated by a Republican president. He is a conservative judge. And he basically said, look, you can't just do this because you've got due process that needs to be met. And why is that so important? So we're all against deporting violent gang members who are not documented. But how do you know that that person is a violent gang member who is not documented? You have to have due process. What if you got the wrong person? That is the whole point of all of this. If the law doesn't apply to you, then it doesn't apply to you. But the only way you can figure that out is if you have due process. And that's what Judge Boasberg is saying. You just have to have a process of figuring out you got the right people. And the Trump administration did not have that process. In terms of nationwide injunctions, Chairman Aguilar is right. If you don't like it, you appeal it, and then you have appellate court weigh in. And then if you don't like that, you have the Supreme Court weigh in. That's how we do it in our system of justice.
Thank you. Cassie.
Yesterday, Secretary Noem suggested getting rid of FEMA, that was something the administration is considering. Obviously, this comes as Congress is considering Governor Newsom's $40 billion request to recover from the wildfires. North Carolina is still recovering from the flooding, so on and so forth. I'm curious for your response to that. And have you had any conversations with the Republican leadership on when perhaps this aid ask could come up for a potential vote? Is it looking like it would be a single bill? Would it be included in reconciliation? Do you have any insight into that?
I don't have any more insight on timing or what Republican leadership has planned. What I would respond to is, as a Californian, both of us feel natural disasters that are national in scope deserve a nationwide response from Congress. The House and Senate, time and time again, hurricanes, floods, fires, earthquakes, we come to the aid of our neighbors and friends who are going through tragedy. This is no different than that. Floods in North Carolina deserve the same response as fires in Los Angeles. Having FEMA there is incredibly important. That said, California has amazing professionals who do this work in the disaster and recovery space. Smaller states do not. It is actually to the benefit of smaller states and more rural communities that we have a strong and robust FEMA. I hope our colleagues on the other side of the aisle understand that, because when a tragedy comes and they want help for their constituents, it's something that we value and hold dear, and I hope that they do as well.
Mother Nature doesn't look at your party registration before she strikes, and natural disasters affect all Americans. This past December, we did disaster aid relief. Some of the states that got that include Oklahoma and South Carolina. And when you have, as Chairman Aguilar said, large states like California, we have the resources to address natural disasters, but smaller states do not. And so FEMA is critically important to a lot of these smaller states, some of them are rural states, and I really hope, as Chairman Aguilar said, our Republicans understand that when you have the vast resources of the federal government, that benefits all Americans when natural disasters strike.
Now that the dust has kind of settled from the government shutdown fight, how do you feel about Chuck Schumer's leadership? Do you still think he's the right person to lead Senate Democrats?
Both the Vice Chair and I are very pleased with our senators, Alex Padilla and Adam Schiff, voting against the CR. Our fight ahead is on how we protect Medicaid and Social Security. You've seen now, Washington Post article today, the Social Security lines, people aren't answering, hours, we're hearing from constituents waiting hours and hours on hold, the Trump administration is ushering out employees, frontline employees who are doing this critical work across the country, responding to individuals. It's imperative that we ensure Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. That's the next fight ahead, and I'm confident that our partners and friends in the Senate are going to lock arms with us and protect Medicaid and so many of these vital programs while holding the Trump administration accountable.
Do you have confidence in him,
Yeah.
Leader Schumer?
Look, I have confidence in the leadership in the House and the Senate. I have confidence in the leadership of Hakeem Jeffries guiding the House Democratic Caucus. That's our focus. I'm elected by them. I'm not elected I'm not running for Senate leadership of any kind. They don't need me to opine on any of that. I'm confident in House leadership of focusing on protecting these vital programs and economic interests that Americans have. Mike?
On the debt ceiling, House Republicans have made clear that they want to put that into reconciliation, but there have been some recent reports that the IRS revenues are coming in lower than normal, partly because of the gutting of the agency by Elon Musk. But regardless of why, if that does happen, there's the potential that you would hit the debt ceiling before reconciliation was ready to go, in which case they might hit the floor and need Democratic votes. Have there been discussions within the caucus about that possibility and what you would ask for in return for your votes for a clean debt ceiling?
Leader Jeffries will guide those conversations with Budget Ranking Member Boyle, and I'm sure Ways and Means Ranking Member Neal. We'll have those caucus family discussions, but I think we all subscribe to the Nancy Pelosi model that nothing should be given away for free.
Thank you. Do you think that there's an appetite from House Republicans to join Democrats in an investigation of the Trump administration officials' use of the Signal app to discuss war plans?
We believe in, just like the Vice Chair said, we believe in accountability for these decisions. These are absolutely reckless national security decisions that put our brave men and women on the front line. It put them at risk. They could try to whitewash this as they have other crises, but this is something that is very, very top of mind for us. I hope our Republican counterparts also believe in accountability and oversight. We'll see how the Senate hearing goes today. 2 individuals on that text thread testifying, also testifying tomorrow here in the House. So we're curious as to their answers. But our guess is that they're probably going to minimize their reckless behavior. But this is all about, these individuals, who many of them were unqualified in the first place, this is about their ability to bend the knee to Donald Trump and to do whatever he wants. That's why they are in these positions, and they will continue to be in these positions until Donald Trump gets tired of them or they start speaking up and speaking their mind. I'm not confident that either of those are going to happen.
National security should not be a partisan issue, so the Republicans absolutely should join Democrats in having an investigation. And I want to note there's also reporting today that one of the participants in a single chat was added when he was physically in Russia. That's what the reporting says. And the problem with using a phone with an unapproved app to discuss secret information like this is that not only do you have potentially these phones that are able to be hacked, but the carrier system itself is problematic. So a few years ago, I did an investigation that showed that, actually 60 minutes of the investigation, that showed that with the phones, because you have to communicate right through carriers, there is a flaw in these systems that allows people to intercept what's happening when the phones are transmitting with each other through these carrier networks. So you can't really fix that problem, no matter how amazing your phone or your app may or may not be. It is a network problem. And again, if any foreign intelligence service exploited that network problem or exploited any of these phones that were used in the signal chat, they could have given that information to Houthis and they could have shot down a pilot. And that's why what happened was so reckless, and that's why Hegseth needs to resign.
Andrew?
Are Democrats going to be as willing to oppose a debt ceiling increase as they were with the government funding bill?
Are they going to be?
Are Democrats planning to stand together to try to use a debt ceiling bill as some sort of leverage?
We've seen time and time again House Democrats standing together. First on reconciliation against the $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid 2 weeks ago, against support for a budget that allows Donald Trump and Elon Musk unfettered access to move money around within the federal government. Our expectation and hope is that we will still continue to stand together on the important issues of the day, which include raising the debt limit as well as funding government beyond September 30th. House Democrats stand united to look out for the American people who are struggling with the day-to-day costs that they face. That is front and center. That's what we're focused on, and that's who we're fighting for. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This program is copyrighted by Federal Network, Incorporated, and provided only for informational and educational purposes. Unauthorized reproduction, distribution, or use of this episode without expressed written permission from FedNet is prohibited. Thanks for listening to this FedNet podcast. Watch live action from Congress on our YouTube channel at FedNet TV. Thanks for listening.